Okay guys, so the first thing that out is that I originally thought I was going to use Avalanche cardstock as my base, but you'll see later on in the video that I just decide that the white is just too stark against those really bright colors. It competes because white tends to be very bright against neon, and I wanted something to kind of tone it down and to ground it, so I end up going for a different sheet of paper. But right now I'm just picking some designer papers to mat my photo, and I originally go with this little pinwheel type sketchy pattern here, and I leave a little bit of paper surrounding the photo. I don't just leave like a very narrow border because I want the pattern to show. I really like that pattern, so I think I leave like probably 2 or 3 inches on one side and about an inch on the other side. And everything that I'm adhering down, I'm leaving about an inch of room on either side for me to tuck things into and, layer. And then I definitely wanted to use that heart paper. I really like it. And I'm being cheap and stingy because that's my only sheet of it, so I want to use it in moderation on a few different projects. So I just cut a strip of it to kind of go in the center of the paper, and also it has a lot of the neon colors that I intend on incorporating in later with my embellishments. So that's really all I'm doing right now, is just kind of matting all those different things. Okay, so now I've pulled out those Heidi Swapp photo corners, and I'm utilizing them to put on just alternating corners of my layout. And originally I think I'm going to use that pink one, but I don't use it because I'm just not ready to incorporate that color yet, and it didn't look good to me next to her little outfit. So here I'm kind of laying everything out, and at this point I think I start to realize that the white paper is just not going to work, and I go for this paper right here that's black with the little white, I don't know, stars on it. So I switch everything around now, and then I decide to incorporate that doily that Sherry from Scrappin' and Rappin' gave me. I think it really goes good with the patterns on here, and I like that it's an element of a different material. It's kind of that, I don't know what you call that, like a plasticky transparency type piece. And then I also salvage the bottom of that black piece of paper because I really like incorporating that yellow into it. So now I've laid everything out, and I decide that in order to incorporate that camera stamp, that I want to stamp it on that green paper and then cut it out. And I've edited some of that out because it took me some time to cut around it. But I did not leave the camera had like a little camera around the neck piece, and I just cut that off. That wasn't needed for what I was doing in my project here. So I really like the way that turned out. So now I've cut or stamped out that image of the camera, and I'm cutting around it just as I said. And then I opt for one of the back parts of the designer paper is like a little pale gray graph, and I stamp the camera again on that graph to be the middle, the lens part of the camera. And my intention was to stamp the Adore You stamp by Ali Edwards, because that is going to become a part of my title and an embellishment for my layout. So that's what you see me doing here, is just preparing that. And I did edit a little bit of this so that you didn't have to watch me cut every little thing. And I'm sort of sorting through the papers just to decide which one I want it to use for that lens, but I do end up choosing the light gray camera lens one, or for the camera lens. So it's that paper right there. Okay, so now, as I said, I'm just cutting out that lens, and I'm going to adhere it in the middle of that camera to be a component of the title and also an embellishment. And then you'll see me sort of start adhering everything down. I kind of lay it all out on my layout the way I think it looks, visually appealing, and then you can't see, but typically I use my iPad to just take a photo of where I've matted everything or intended for it to go, so that way when I take it all off the paper I know how to adhere it. So I finish completing making this embellishment, and then I start laying, my photo down, the matting, that little doily, and kind of organizing everything on my paper. And that's typically how I do it. I don't ever adhere everything completely down until I'm certain, you know, that that's where it's going to go. And then I also leave various corners and layers where I can have access to them in case I want to add layering or I forget that I want something somewhere. So that is what's going on in this little snippet of the video. And just in case you guys are wondering, I kind of watch a piece of my video, you know, 3 or 4 minutes of it, and then I know what's sort of happening in it, and I've been kind of explaining it to you guys, and then I stop recording and I go to another part, because sometimes I don't have, like, for instance, this video is 23 minutes long, and I don't have that much dialogue to tell you guys, but I do know that you want to see my thought process. And then, just so you're aware, I do end up inking all the edges of a few of the things that I'm laying down with Memento ink, and then some black soot in other places, just so that it adds some dimension, because I don't want it to get lost with all of the bright colors. So now right here, you know, I put those 2 main strips of paper, and before I actually adhere the photo, why you don't see me in the screen is that I went to go water down a little bit of that neon paint because it was a little too thick to splatter. So I put a little water in there, and now I'm going to splatter it all over the background, and then I kind of use it as a watercolor around the photo. I just do 2 little corners of just a couple quick swipes with my paintbrush to make that kind of like neon color on the photo matting, just to bring out the green in her dress. So that's what you see me doing here. So I cut out the part where I kind of use my heat gun to dry some of those yellow ink splots or paint splots, and then I kind of blot some of them, and I start adhering things, and then this is where I begin the actual embellishment process. To me, I've sort of laid the guts down for this layout, and now it's time to utilize all the things I pulled to embellish. So I start with those tags that Sherry got me. I know I want to utilize them. They definitely bring out the neon colors, and I knew I wanted to add pink to really bring out the pink in that strip of heart paper, so I add one of the tags to the corner, and the little what do you call it, the little reinforcer around the hole of the tag was a little too thick and just making the layout bulky, and it wasn't laying straight, so you'll see later I start cutting those off of all the various tags that I use. So that's what I'm sort of doing here, is just putting my doily down, adding that little bit of pink tag, and starting to do the embellishment process. Now again, I start to use my rule of 3s. You know, I want to add green within a triangular type fashion, so the camera embellishment has some green on it, of course her dress, and then I decide right behind that pink tag that I need to add the green neon one, just to kind of make that, you know, triangular style that brings, that's how I basically bring my layouts together so that they're cohesive, is that I try to use that rule of 3s. And so you'll see me kind of add that to the left-hand corner of the layout right now. So now that I have those tags sort of laid where I want them to, I start kind of pulling some of the actual sketchbook embellishments that I have, those little fabric stickers and tags, and then I have the die cut pieces, and I'm just kind of rifling through them, deciding which ones I want to use, seeing what is complementary to what I've already done on the layout. And you'll see here, you know, just like that rule of threes, I used hot pink in the upper left hand corner, so you'll see me put a little fabric tab in the bottom right hand corner, and then later on you'll see me add some pink hearts, so that again there's that triangulation of the same color. Sometimes I do 4, you'll see, instead of 3, but for me 2 is just not enough. Maybe when I start scrapping 8.5 by 11 layouts it will be, because there's a lot less space to cover, but I just find with 12 by 12s to make it all cohesive, you really need to kind of bunch them in those groups. And then I just use some of that film strip washi on various places in the layout. And again, you'll see I won't just use it in one place, I'll probably use it in 2 or 3. And you know, I'm just clustering in various areas to add some interest to the layout and also some dimension. So that's sort of what I'm doing during this portion of the video. I also decide in looking at those die cuts that since I kind of put a doily at the top, they had sort of this green doily looking thing in the die cut, so I just kind of like the doilies grouped in the corner, so I wanted to find a way to incorporate that. I just really like the way that it looked, and I'm really loving playing with this type of green neon color that's in her dress. I also found a die cut there that's like kind of like a little tag, and it had a few lines, so I wanted to just do a little bit of journaling about, you know, that she looks so dainty in this, because since I'm not a big girly girl, I often dress her in not girly girl clothing, but to me this was suitable because it was cute, but it wasn't like bright pink or, you know, frilly. It was more of a hard rocker 80s tutu, so I kind of just wanted to write a little something about that so that she could remember that in her when she has these layouts and she's older. So now again, I pulled one of each color of those tags Sherry gave me, and I ended up using all 3. There's that yellow photo corner, and I added a little yellow fabric tag on the bottom there, so I felt like it needed yellow in the other upper right hand corner of the paper. And I know that I want to tuck that journaling in on the side there where that yellow tag is and hold it on by one of the paper clips, and I think I cut some pieces out here, but originally I was trying to go with a heart since hearts are kind of the theme of this layout, but the heart just wasn't, the heart paper clip was not showing like a heart to me when you paper clipped it, so I end up going for a star in the end, because you know, it's still sort of punk, and a star kind of looks like punk rock to me, so that's what I end up going in, because it shows more when you use the star. So now I'm just embellishing the heck out of this. I'm, you know, pulling all my different embellishments out, seeing what fits where. I know I want a lot of layering in certain areas, and I go through that die cut piece, and they have a little ticket there that says lovely on it, and it has a 5. Boy, did I wish it was a 6, because she's 6 months old in this photo, but I went ahead and used it anyways just because it said lovely, and I really liked the way that it looked stuck in with that star paperclip. And then I go back to the little fabric pieces, and I add a little yellow one in the upper left-hand corner because it looked kind of bare with just that pink and green tag. And then I start looking at the other embellishments that come in the die cut pieces and just sort of decide what I want to incorporate where. And you'll see I pull that ticket out and decide to ink the edges because it was sort of getting lost with the photo behind it. So that's sort of what I'm doing right now. So at this point, even though I pulled out the wood veneer cameras and the hearts, I knew I didn't want to use the camera because I use this big large camera stamp and I just didn't want to overdo it. And originally I was thinking of painting the hearts using my Copics, but I don't own any of the neon ones, so I really thought it would get lost, you know, just being colored. Then I remembered that I have a stack of pigment ink from Color Box that has like a neon green, a neon pink, and then I had sort of a bluish color, and I don't know, I'm looking at it right now, it doesn't really have a name, but that neon pink color that I use is called Raspberry. The blue is called, I'm opening it right now, and it's called Surf, and then the green that I used is called Lemongrass. So I just push them right into the pad. They really pick up the color good. I always recommend using dye inks for this. If you use chalk ink, it takes forever to dry on the wood. So I ink them right up, and then I use some glossy accents to make them come out of the camera snap. That's just something that I always do. And these hearts, the colors that I use, match perfectly with that heart paper strip that's in the background. So I was very happy to see that. And so I just put one covering the heart that's on the camera, and then a few other ones of the smaller, more, I don't know, these are like a little bit wonkier style of a heart. I put those coming out of the little part that you snap on the camera. And then I think I decided to even it out later by putting a few in the upper right hand corner. So that's what you see me doing here. So I knew I wanted my title to be kind of in a column in that left-hand side above the camera, because I wanted originally for it to say, "I simply, totally, and utterly adore you." But I had to do a lot of editing out of here because I could not find one out of all the alphabets that I have, both stickers and thickers alike. I could not find one set that went with this layout that had enough T's to write the word utterly. I had used up all the T's, either I had one and I just couldn't make it work. So I knew that the I simply was going to be these white thickers from Amy Tan. I knew that right away. And then the totally, I knew I wanted to use from that paper that I pulled, and I can't think, it's Echo Park's Good Times. The blue just seems so fitting with that little blue heart in the left hand side there. So I knew I wanted it to say "I simply, totally," and then the word "and" I used out of those same sets of letters from Echo Park. They had a larger alpha in blocks that was the "and" in yellow. And then I was going to use the blue again to write utterly, but I had already used 3 T's in totally, or I mean 2 T's in totally, and I still needed 2 more, and there was only 3 in the pack. So I really struggled with that. I just could not find, so then I decided to write "I simply, totally, and fully adore you," because I had plenty of F's and L's and stuff. So here I am kind of fussing with the letters and choosing all of my different ones, and I actually like the way that it ended up turning out. You'll see further down this video that that black set of letters that I used for fully, I was really scared that the F was going to get lost in that black background, but since they're so glossy, you'll see in my final photo, it really shows up quite well. So I was very, very pleased with the way that the title came out. And this is where I sort of pull out a big pile of alphas and really try to look for one that I can utilize. And further along you see that I start writing utterly with that aqua blue that I wrote totally, and then I realize I don't have enough T, so I pull it back off. And then I just keep hunting for something that's going to be appropriate. I even entertain the idea of a pink set of thickers that I pulled, but it just was not the right pink for all the other pinks that I used on this layout. And then I was going to use just a white glittery thicker that I had, but it just was too big to fit in the space that I had to write after "and." So that sort of, I edited a lot of this out, so you might see bits and chunks because it took me about 10 good minutes to find what I wanted to use. So I finally settled on that nice black hardcover glossy alpha to write the word fully, and then I decide to add this little fabric strip that looks like an arrow because I like that it points to that. And then I just cut off the end, and I don't remember if I used the end somewhere else in the layout or if I just stuck it back on the embellishment paper to use later. But here I'm inking up just a few more of those hearts because right above that green doily I thought it would be cute to just kind of add some of those same color elements over in that side. So that's what I'm sort of doing here. And I think for the most part I call this layout done after gluing those on. And at the end of this video you'll see a freeze frame of the final picture or layout, and I apologize, it's not the greatest photo. It was dark out and I had the flash on and it kept glaring on the picture, but I do like to add just one photo so that you guys can see what the finished product looked like. So thanks everyone for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'm still trying to get the hang of doing this voiceover. I know there's moments of silence, but I don't always have something to say.